Hello, welcome to my little trip down road testing memory lane. Another Q&A video today. I've been on my travels. We've just been doing a group test at MCM, exploring the evolution of the Supersport bike. So this test has been driven by the fact that in 2024, a couple of the Supersport bikes have re-emerged in the shape of the Honda CBR 600RR, which is coming out later in 2024, and the Kawasaki ZX6R, which is out now. So yeah, Supersport bikes don't really need any introduction, do they? You know, they had their kind of peak between the mid-90s and the mid-noughties, really. They were the preserve of the headbanger and just fantastic bikes. But as we've all grown older and as other bikes have become more appealing, Supersport bikes have kind of had their day until now. So in this test, we've put a ZX6R up against an Aprilia RSV4, which is kind of more the modern day interpretation of the Supersport bike, and the Triumph Street Triple 765 RS, which is kind of a 21st century Supersport bike. It's got all the fun and the thrills and the speed of a conventional Supersport bike, but because it's naked, it's easier to ride, much more thrilling at road speeds because you've got more impression of speed. So we took them to an airstrip, we performance tested them all, we put them on a dyno, and we got 3 road testers to test them and each kind of talk about their favourite bike. So there was myself, New Boy, Carl Stevens and Chris Newbegin. It was a really interesting test and you can read all about that in MCN very soon. So first of all, let's crack on with some questions. And the first one is from Mr. Fishfinger. What a great name. Thanks very much for your question. Nice videos. Keep them coming. Thanks very much. Testers sometimes use the term mechanical grip when talking about bike handling. What do you actually mean when you say that? Yeah, I've used that term myself and I've seen that in a lot of road tests. I guess kind of mechanical grip comes initially, really, I suppose, from cars or Formula One, where Formula One racers search for mechanical grip. I suppose you've got mechanical grip, which is the actual grip of the tyres into the tarmac. Formula One cars also have aerodynamic grip, where the air pushes the cars into the floor to create more grip. I suppose you could even talk about electronic grip as well, even though electronic grip is a little bit more synthetic. It's not real, really. All electronics do is kind of control grip levels. Electronics can dull the power to stop tyres sliding in the first place. Traction control can stop a tyre spinning. So it's more about managing grip than finding grip. But mechanical grip is something on a bike that you feel when a bike's just really plugged into the tarmac. And it doesn't necessarily have to be anything Harry Dash. It can be something quite simple. So, you know, bikes with a lot of mechanical grip are normally bikes that are quite balanced. And they're grippy without really having to have sticky tyres, without really having to have electronics or anything like that. Generally, a lot of smaller engine, less powerful bikes have got a lot of mechanical grip because they haven't got big power to kind of unsettle the bikes and spin the tyres. So, you know, and the most unlikely bikes, I think, have got good mechanical grip, even though maybe the suspension might not be brilliant. So things like the Yamaha MT-07, quite bouncy, but very grippy. You feel very confident pushing it hard. The Honda Hornet is the same. And a lot of the middleweight super nakeds have got a lot of mechanical grip because, yeah, they haven't got too much power to unsettle the tyres. As soon as you start getting more powerful into the superbike territory, then yeah, you really are searching for mechanical grip from the tyres to keep you on the straight and narrow. So, you know, mechanical grip can be found with better tyres, with stickier tyres, and also good suspension setup. So, you know, I've said before that suspension is a massive compromise when it comes to road bikes. Manufacturers have got to build a bike that doesn't cost too much, so the suspension is built down to a price, the suspension components, They need to build a bike that is works for lots of different road scenarios, track scenarios, type of rider, type of riding style, weight of rider, and all those things. So it is a big compromise. So, you know, a lot of super bikes straight out the box don't have a lot of mechanical grip because they're dancing on these kind of settings where, you know, if you push a little bit hard, they can go. But when you start fiddling with the suspension, especially if you've got aftermarket suspension, I can only speak from experience on my racing bike, once you start getting the balance of the bike right with ride heights and preloads, you start getting the spring rate correct, you start getting the damping rates correct, then you can create a lot of mechanical grip, a lot of juicy grip. You feel like you're sucked into the tarmac. And then anything you do after that with electronics or, you know, even stickier tyres is a bonus, but you've kind of got this base package which you're really confident to rail into corners, turns really sweetly because the front tyres are so grippy, lots of feel from the rear, lots of grip from the rear. So that's why we would use the term mechanical grip. And I bet you kind of only really see that when people are talking about the smaller bikes. But that is a great question. Thank you very much, Mr. Fishfinger. Next one is from Common Sense. Although I love sports bikes, I don't see many cruiser reviews from MCN. Can you tell me why? Well, thank you for the question. Makes a lot of sense. In actual fact, it's probably more of a perception. Unless you buy all 51 issues of MCN, we don't make one between Christmas and New Year, but we make a double edition before Christmas, which is about to come out, which is really good. Yeah, unless you see every single MCN, you wouldn't really know what goes in there and what doesn't. And MCN, we test every single new bike. Probably maybe miss out on some sort of obscure 125s or scooters, but generally, you know, from 125 up, we cover every single new bike that's released, either in a launch scenario as a first ride where we go and get a bike from a manufacturer and test it for the first time, or within group tests. And the simple fact is there aren't many cruisers that you can buy new, which is why, you know, proportionally there aren't as many cruisers in the paper as there would be adventure bikes or nakeds or that kind of stuff. So yes, we do. We test all sorts, and I personally like the fact that we are so varied in what we test at MCN. You know, I love getting on a cruiser. It's nice to ride those bikes as nature intended, just cruising along. You know, my heart is sports bikes, but you know, if you're sports bikes every day, they get a little bit boring and then not very interesting to write about all the time. Just a bunch of sports bikes. So yeah, we do cruiser reviews. We all really enjoy doing them, and hopefully you will spot the next one in MCN. But if you go on MCN online and look at the owners reviews sections in the bike reviews, you'll see all the cruisers that we've tested, and there's loads. But thanks very much for your question. The next is from Ron Smith. Hi mate, long time follower of yours in the paper, and caught this channel fairly early and really enjoying it. Well, thank you very much. In my opinion, MCN was and is the last word when it comes to reviews on new bikes. Thank you. That being said, over the years I've felt that one part of the review has gotten to have less value. That's the star rating. Because as fewer dodgy bikes have been released, the grouping around 4 stars has been getting greater and greater. Do you agree that 4 stars are far and away the most likely rating? If so, what are your thoughts on whether this is a bad thing and what your conversations have been around this in the past? My personal preference would be that each aspect of the bike is rated out of 10, with 10 being the benchmark of the best for that aspect from any production bike. Then use the RRP to set the final rating so everything goes through the value lens. Well, thanks for the question. That is interesting. Yeah, when we give ratings, I mean, ratings are kind of a quick snapshot of what we might think of a bike. And as we all know, bikes and the way we feel about them and the way they behave are so nuanced. You know, it's a shame we have to give them ratings, but obviously, you know, that's what sometimes you want to see. And you're right that a lot of ratings are 4 stars out of 5, simply because there aren't that many howlers. I mean, our rating system goes from 1 is bad, 2 is good, 3 is average, 4 is very good, 5 is outstanding, excellent. So, you know, it's generally 4. And since I've been at MCN, we've tried lots of different ratings. There's been ratings like you describe, which is a percentage rating out of 100, where we go deep and we sort of evaluate every aspect of the bike, including price. But we found out, we ended up coming to a point where most bikes were kind of 89%, 90%, 91%, 92% or whatever, which is basically the same as 4 out of 5 in spirit. Then I think we've even had marks out of 10 before, but the same thing happens. You know, most bikes are 7, 8 or 9. So it's very hard to really get a feel of what a bike's like just using a rating. You've really kind of got to go in deep and read what the tester has said about the bike, which is kind of the whole point of the road test, really. You want to, we explore every single avenue about, you know, what the bike's like to ride, what the components are like, the value of the bikes, what you get for your money, what they're like compared to their rivals, and all the rest of it. So yeah, unfortunately, you've got to delve a little bit deeper than the star rating, but I definitely know what you mean, because when I give a bike 4 out of 5, you know, it definitely doesn't tell the whole story. There's not too many 5 out of 5 bikes out there, actually, and not too many 3s, and very, very few 1s and 2s. So yeah, I suppose that's a good thing. Most bikes are good, aren't they? So but thanks very much for your question. The next one is from Ian White. Hey Neezy, love the videos. Thanks very much. I've got a Street Triple 675 RS21 model and love it. I'm not surprised, it's very good. I keep hearing how the stock tyres, Pirelli Supercorsa SPs, are great in the dry, but nervous in the wet. Question is, what tyres would you suggest I look at from the other manufacturers for quick road riding and occasional track days? I'm so confused. Bridgestone S22, Metzeler, etc. Well, I don't blame you for being confused. Tyres, you know, I lose track of what tyres are what within tyre ranges, and I'm a proper tyre anorak. I think the most important thing here is to kind of recognise the genre of tyres that are available. So for road tyres, really, there are 4 genres. There's sports touring, there's sports, there's at the top track day, and then there's this kind of weird middle ground between track day and sports. So for example, if I was to talk about Pirellis, for example, the sports touring tyre would be an Angel GT2. The sports tyre would be a Diablo Rosso 4. The in-betweeny kind of fast road track day tyre is a Diablo Rosso Corsa 4. And then the track day tyre would be a Supercorsa SP V4 or V4 SP. So they're the categories. And kind of put simply, you basically choose a tyre in relation to the temperature more than anything you're going to use it in. That's one of the big factors. So a sports touring tyre works in a massive big wide window from like sub-zero conditions to 30s or 40s, and it'll work all the way through there. But they won't be the grippiest of tyres, kind of at the sticky end. You've got the sports tyres, which work in a slightly smaller window, but new generation sports tyres are probably the best all-rounders, really. You know, unless you're going to ride all the way through winter. You know, they've got excellent wear. They work when they're cold, work when they're hot. You can do track days on them, so they're kind of, you know, magic tyres almost. Then you've got this kind of cross between sports and track day, and their operating window is narrower again. They don't work so well in the cold and the wet, but they're much more sticky. You know, new generation intermediate tyres, whatever you want to call them, are as sticky as track day tyres of a few years ago, no question. And then you've got the track day tyres, and they work in a slightly smaller window. But the compounds are made so you can still use them on the road. You don't need tyre warmers on the track, but they're really, really sticky. And then if you were to go narrower window again, you've got racing tyres that, you know, to the extreme, work in a real small slice of temperature, and they need tyre warmers. If they don't agree with the track temperature, they'll tear, and they don't last very long. They're literally for racing. So it depends what you want to use your tyres for. So your Street Triple's got Pirelli Supercorsa SPs on it. So yeah, like you say, they're great in the dry. You can do track days on them, but no, they're not going to be as good in the wet as a sports tyre, for a couple of reasons. Number one, the compound isn't as kind of cold weather, wet weather friendly as a sports tyre or sports touring tyre. And obviously most of the tyre is slick and there's not much tread in the tyre. So they call it a land to sea ratio. So it's got more land to sea, that's right. And then as you kind of go down the rungs, you've got more tread, sort of more of a 50-50 land sea ratio. So for example, if you was to go for a Bridgestone S22, that's a sports tyre. So that's a tyre to use in all conditions that you could do the odd track day on. And then the equivalent for that would be a Metzeler Sport Tech RR M9 or a Pirelli Rosso 4. Confusing, isn't it? I understand why you think it's so confusing. So yeah, it depends what you're going to use your bike for, but if you're just going to predominantly use it on the road, I'd just go for an all-round sports tyre. If you're going to do 1 or 2 track days a year, go for the one higher. And if you're going to do a lot of track days just in the summer, go for a track day tyre like a Supercorsa. But don't go any further. Even if you've got a super bike, don't go down the race tyre route because they're just difficult to manage. The tyres don't last very long. They degrade through heat cycles. And you spend most of your time worrying about tyre warmers and stands and power and getting out on the track while your tyres are still hot than actually enjoying a track day. If you're racing, it's a different story. But I hope that answers the question. Maybe not, but I hope it does. Thanks very much. This one is from Baby Effin Blue. I know that you've commented quite a few times. This might be the first time I've answered one of your questions, but thanks for all your comments in the past. Like I said before, I've got loads in my stash now, and yeah, it's going to take a while to get through them all, but I'm going to get through them all. Thanks, Neezy. These videos are balm for my office confined soul. Also, I wanted to know, since I'm doing my first test on my race bike next weekend, am I too old to ever be competitive? I remember you saying you were in your early 20s when you crashed on your 250 and after 6 years came back and are still at least competitive in the classes you race till this day. I'm 26, training my ass off for my final season in 6 months. Do I have any hope at all of at least holding my own in amateur classes? Dare I even ask about the 19-year-old pros with 15 years of experience? Well, good question. I suppose age isn't really a barrier to speed. I mean, look at Jeremy McWilliams, look at Rossi, who went on into his 40s. I think age is definitely a barrier if you want to be a professional racer. You need to start young, and even then there's no guarantee you're ever going to make it. But if you're going to do amateur racing, club racing as we'd call it in the UK, I'd say most riders are on the old side because that's the only people that can really afford it. You do get some youngsters in there, which is a good thing. So I don't think age is a barrier. I think if you're training, obviously, just try and get loads of riding tips and advice. People like Simon Crafer with his Moto Voodoo thing that I've mentioned before. But I think the big thing is having the mindset of wanting it really badly. I mean, I think that's the difference between, a fast or a winner and also ran maybe. I can only talk in my small kind of club racing experience. I think maybe 10 years ago, when all I used to do was think about racing, all I used to do was train for racing, I was just analysing the data on my bike all the time. And I got to a point that when I arrived on the grid, I knew I had a good chance of winning, and I won a lot of races. That carried on for a few years, and now I'm in a situation where my skill level probably hasn't really changed, but the will and the kind of determination to do it isn't at the level it used to be. And when I go on track now, you know, I'm kind of happy to ride around and enjoy myself and, you know, go a little bit fast rather than have that absolute kind of, you know, single-minded, fearsome sort of determination to want to win. You know, when you get older, it doesn't matter either. I remember a couple of years ago racing, I remember being on the grid in the wet on my BMW, and I wasn't really feeling it. I didn't really want to do it. And because I was so relaxed, I made a really good start. And once I'd started and I was in the race, and then I wanted to do it. But yeah, I think that desire's lost. So, you know, in answer to your question, really, you know, if you're 26 years old, I think you know, you're in your prime when it comes to racing. And I think if you just want it more than anything, then I think you'll achieve it. You know, most people can achieve anything if they put their mind to it, and I'm sure you can, despite having to race with 19-year-old pros with 15 years of experience. You know, I won't worry about them. You know, you worry about what you're doing, and I'm sure you would do well. But yeah, let us know how you get on. Great question. And finally, from Philip Benalti. Thanks for your question. Hi Nevesy, I've been riding the same bike, RSV4, at the track for 9 years. I've not upgraded anything on the bike other than tyres and brake pads to confirm that any progression or regression in lap times is 100% on me. I've taken a fair few lessons but seem to have hit a brick wall. I know there's at least another 5 seconds a lap in the bike based on what Lorenzo Savadori did on a showroom stock bike with headlights, mirrors and indicators during a 2015 track day, while probably not pushing any limits. As a normal rider that does 6 to 8 weekends a year at the track, at what point should I be content and allow myself to throw some parts at the bike? Because honestly, the temptation is very strong. Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I admire your determination to not change anything on the bike and just go through this process of self-improvement to try and get faster. I mean, it's very, very tempting to look for excuses if you're not fast and think, well, I need this part on the bike, I need that part on the bike. And as you rightly say, when you see like a professional rider on the same bike and they go a lot faster, you realise that you kind of got to look within yourself. And I see it a lot as well at launches when we share the track with pro riders. They're on another planet. You can't keep up with them. And yeah, you can get faster with training, with getting around the track a little bit smarter, with better technique. But that might not take you all the way. And really, you've got to ask yourself the question, what do you want out of your track riding? You know, if you want to be as fast as a pro rider, it's probably not really going to happen. But if you just want to enjoy yourself, then, and lap times do matter, then why not throw some parts at the bike? You know, motorbikes and all the shiny bits that we bolt to them, we don't need any of them. It's just nice to have, isn't it? So yeah, if you want to improve your lap times on an RSV4, I would say that the most obvious thing to do would be to look at your suspension. You know, I guess it's the factory version, it'll have pretty good suspension anyway, but it's worth getting the suspension sprung for your weight, the correct weight fork springs, the correct weight rear shock. That alone will be worth a second or two a lap depending on the track, especially compared to road bike stuff. After that, you know, slightly better brake pads. If your bike's got an ABS system, then getting rid of that will improve your lap times very, very slightly. Really, I think that's as far as you really need to go. You know, I guess you could put kit electronics or whatever on it, I don't really think that's going to improve your lap time too much. You know, you can spend money on lighter parts, you know, lighter. You can buy titanium bolt kits and you can change all the bolts for lighter bolts in your bike to make it lighter. You can put lightweight wheels on, you can put lightweight bodywork on. But I think suspension and brakes is where you're going to find your gains. A pipe as well, if you haven't got a pipe, you know, not only will it give you a little bit more power, but road exhaust pipes are very heavy with all the cats inside. So you'd save a useful bit of weight by putting a race pipe on the bike, which will make it not only accelerate harder, make it brake more efficiently, it will make it change direction more easily. So yeah, that would be sort of maybe third on my list, maybe. And then other than that, maybe make the bike more comfortable with different clip-ons. So, you know, have them wider so you can move around the bike a little bit better. More adjustable foot pegs, maybe different seat units so you can get yourself really, really comfortable. And all those things will kind of help you chip away at your lap times. At the end of the day, track days are just fun things to do. And if you're going to enjoy yourself with more snazzy bits on your bike, then go for it. I don't think it's a sign of failure or weakness. I think most people like to throw parts of the bike to make them go faster, to make them look better, to make them feel good. So yeah, go for it. Give in to your temptation. Well, that's it for this episode. Thanks very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, you can like and subscribe. But we will see you again on the next one.